With the way how Gege Akutami has been speeding through certain aspects of the manga, it has left many fans with more questions than answers. And seeing as Gege wants to end the series sooner rather than later, many feared that their questions won't get answered. So today I wanted to go over my picks of the top 10 things that I'd like to still have answered before the series ends. Before we get into it, I just want to say that there are obviously more than 10 mysteries or running plot threads that still need to be answered, but these are just my personal picks that I'd like to see. With that being said, let's get into it. Why does Yuji naturally have so much physical strength and resistance to Sukuna? We know that Kenjaku had a big part in Yuji's birth, and thus it's safe to say that Kenjaku engineered Yuji to be this way. But how exactly did he do this? Does it have something to do with Yuji being the perfect cage for holding Sukuna's soul inside of him? And why did Kenjaku choose the Itadori family to create Yuji? Was it merely a case of coincidence and opportunity? Or did Kenjaku intentionally coordinate the events that led up to him being able to create a child within the Itadori family? We know from author statements that Sukuna himself never had any children, but it could be that the Itadori family could be descendants of someone else within Sukuna's family, or that they descend from a clone or something. It's incredibly suspicious how much the Itadori family looks like the Heian era Sukuna. Not to mention that Yuji has had his physically enhanced strength, speed, and durability for a long time. Long before he ever attained usable cursed energy, in fact. Meaning that it is, to our knowledge, a purely biological trait. What are all the possible 10 Shadows fusions? It has been reiterated time and time again that the 10 Shadows technique has an insane amount of potential. Not just because the different Shikigami are individually that powerful, but because it's possible to use their versatility in tandem and even fuse the Shikigami. There's the half-baked fusions, which are an extension technique that Megami created by quickly changing the hand seals during the summoning process. The only rules that apply for this type of summoning is that both Shikigami that go into the fusion still need to be alive. The benefit is that you can keep summoning these even if the fusion is destroyed, but their power isn't all that impressive. On the flip side, the other type of possible fusions are the totality fusions. Totality fusions are when a single alive Shikigami inherits the power of the destroyed Shikigami. It was said that there were specific rules to summoning a totality summoning, but what exactly these rules entail were never specified. This has led many fans to speculate that only certain Shikigami can be inherited by other Shikigami, like how Nue can inherit the Great Serpent, Tiger Funeral, and Round Deer to form the Nue Totality Merge Beast Agito. Furthermore, Agito is really similar to depictions of the actual mythological creature known as Nue that Jujutsu Kaisen's version of Nue was based on. But we also saw a middle stage of this summoning when Sukuna summoned the giant Nue that only had inherited the powers of the Great Serpent. So now I'm left wondering what all the summoning possibilities are. If only certain ones can inherit other ones, which are they? If only a singular Shikigami ends up remaining, can it fuse with the other 9 destroyed Shikigami? And what happens if all the Shikigami are destroyed? Does the technique reset, or do you just lose all your power since there's no one left to inherit the Shikigami powers? Even if it doesn't get answered in the story, maybe a volume extra can cover this one. Who are the Ainu Jujutsu Society? In Volume 0, as Principal Yaga is preparing the joint mission to deal with the Night Parade of 100 Demons, he mentions that they need to request help from all of the school alumni, help from the major 3 clans, and help from the Ainu Jujutsu Society. The school alumni speaks for itself, and throughout the main story we've come to find out who the major 3 clans are. But just who are the Ainu Jujutsu Society? In real life, the Ainu people are the indigenous people that have been living in Hokkaido and a small part of Russia. Since Jujutsu Kaisen is heavily based on real life, we can assume that the same is the case here. That would mean that the Ainu Jujutsu Society is a group of sorcerers that exists within that region. The Jujutsu Kaisen fanbook explains for us that the Ainu Jujutsu Society is a coalition of sorcerers based out of Kamui Kotan. Roughly translated, Kamui Kotan can mean God's settlement in the Ainu language, which further reinforces the idea that the area would be very spiritual and potent for sorcery. Other than this, we practically know nothing about the Ainu Jujutsu Society. It would be really cool to have this expanded on. Or at the very least, get to know who they are and why they haven't been as actively involved as the main Jujutsu Society in trying to stop evil curse users like Kenjaku and Sukuna. Why is Hokkaido not included within Tengen's Jujutsu Society barriers? Piggybacking off of the previous one, I'd also like to know why Hokkaido wasn't included within Tengen's barriers. As I said before, in real life, Hokkaido is the home of the indigenous Ainu people. It could be that because their Jujutsu Society was separate from Tengen's teachings and followings, that Tengen decided to not include them within the barriers. As Tengen says, Hokkaido was already established as a vast sacred area. What's up with that? What could be residing in Hokkaido that renders it sacred? Is it hiding or protecting a powerful cursed tool, like the Itadori Maru perhaps? And since the land there has a Jujutsu Society that exists outside of Tengen's bone barriers, does that mean that their form of Jujutsu is much more similar to the Jujutsu of old in the Heian era? If Tengen's barriers ever got torn down, could our main characters need to take a trip to Hokkaido to relearn Jujutsu from the basics up? What happened to our favorites? Guys, we need definitive status updates on Todo and Nobara. Look, I get it. Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of different characters and lots of personalities to juggle. So from a writing aspect, it simply is a lot easier to temporarily write off a few characters so that newer ones can be introduced. It gives them the room to have their own shine without necessarily taking away the shine of existing characters. The way how Todo and Nobara were written out of the story during the Shibuya incident was honestly masterful writing. However, there is one thing that has been leaving a sour taste in my mouth, and that is the fact that it's been an incredibly long time, both in the story and out, and we still have not gotten any definitive status updates on Nobara and Todo. Is Nobara truly dead? Or is she still in stasis from Nita's curse technique? Maybe she is long recovered and has been hiding with the last Sukuna finger to strike it with resonance in a crucial moment. It wouldn't be the first time that Gojo has kept the revival of one of his students hidden. Now that Todo has lost the ability to use both of his arms, thus rendering his curse technique useless, has he fully retired, or will he take a mentor-like approach in trying to nurture his classmates into becoming the best versions of themselves for the upcoming fights? It's not required that we get a status update on the both of them, but there are plenty of reasons to believe that the both of them have not had their final moments on screen yet. Speaking of characters that haven't had any status updates in a while, what happened to Takaba? His comedian curse technique could have been incredibly useful in unknowingly swaying the tides of the Gojo vs Sukuna battle. Takaba was nowhere to be seen in the room where the allied Jujutsu forces were watching the battle via Meime's crows. This led me to believe that he, like Uraume, would have been hiding somewhere nearby on the battlefield. Yet, as of chapter 238, he still has not made an appearance. Likewise, what happened to Utahime, Gakuganji, and Ijichi? At the start of the fight, they helped Gojo launch his opening Hollow Purple. We also know that the first round of the fight took somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes. How have they not made it back to the room with the watch party yet? Will Utahime and Gakuganji stick around to try and boost their allies from a distance? It would be very helpful. What happened to the big three vengeful spirits of Japan? At the end of the Volume 0 story, Gojo tells Yuta that they are distant relatives and share an ancestor known as Sugawara no Michizane. In real life, Sugawara no Michizane, together with Taira no Masakado and Emperor Sutoku, were real people that supposedly became vengeful spirits upon their deaths. There's a lot more to their stories, but to keep it short, together they are known as the big three vengeful spirits of Japan. Because Taira no Masakado's stories share a lot of themes with the Zenin clan, and the same for Emperor Sutoku's story and the Kamo clan, it has led many fans to believe that within the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, the big three vengeful spirits of Japan are the original ancestors of the major three Jujutsu clans. After all, so far the only known way that a human can become a vengeful cursed spirit is either by being a regular human and getting cursed upon their deaths, like Rika Orimoto, or by being a sorcerer and getting killed by anything that doesn't use or contain Jujutsu, like Naoya Zenin. Now, if the big three vengeful spirits of Japan do exist, it leaves the big question of what happened to them. To our knowledge, the major 3 clans aren't in contact with or in possession of them. So were they exorcised at some point? And if so, by who? Maybe they ran away to Hokkaido where they wouldn't be under the influence of Tengen's barriers. And lastly, if they were indeed the originators of the clans, do they also wield their respective curse techniques of the Limitless 6 Eyes, 10 Shadows, and blood manipulation? Panda does mention that Sugawara no Michizane was a big shot sorcerer, so it is very possible. How has Uraume managed to survive for so long? Since the start of the story, Uraume can be seen hanging out with Kenjaku. Later on, we come to find out that Uraume was Sukuna's personal chef and assistant. Could they possibly have used their innate technique to freeze themselves into a cryostasis every so many years to preserve their lifespan? Or are they just reincarnated like many of the other characters that reigned from the previous time periods? We know for a fact that Uraume's freezing is so powerful that it can keep cursed spirits from dissolving into dust when exorcised by freezing their core first. So to me, it wouldn't seem all that out of the realm of possibility that they simply froze themselves and that Kenjaku unfreezes them whenever they're needed. Since Uraume knows reverse curse technique, it's also very possible that they can use the curse technique reversal to thaw themselves out of the cryostasis. How has Kenjaku been able to keep Kaori Itadori's innate technique? Curse techniques are engraved in the brain, but Kenjaku's brain basically replaced or invaded hers, right? You can get around this by controlling the body, since the body is the soul and the soul the body, meaning that the soul would still contain information about Kaori's brain where the curse technique is engraved. But Kenjaku's brain also left her body when he moved into Geto. So how does he still somehow have access to the anti-gravity system abilities? Was he able to copy the engraving? Did he make Kaori's soul reincarnate into Geto's body through a cursed object, then suppress her soul, allowing him to still make use of the abilities associated with her soul? Or is Kenjaku being able to carry over aspects of his previous host simply part of his innate curse technique that just hasn't been explained yet? It would also explain how Kenjaku is resistant to Choso's poisonous blood, despite Geto's body not being related to Noritoshi Kamo at all. Taking it a step further, we know that Kenjaku has had a multitude of hosts in the past, right? Does he have even more techniques hidden up his sleeve that we don't know about? It was stated that there is a limit to how many curse techniques your brain can handle and store at a time, but it wasn't outright stated how many that is. We also know that Kenjaku was already quite the formidable foe 400 years ago during Kashimo's time period. He must have had some ability back then that allowed him to fight at a certain level already, right? Because the secondary abilities that he has now were both acquired within the last 30 years. We won't be getting this information anytime soon, since it's currently Sukuna's time to shine in the manga. But I'd like some answers on Kenjaku's technique before the series ends, whether that be in the form of a Heian era flashback, or just him explaining his technique in full details. Just who are the 16 registered special grade cursed spirits? I'd love to know who they are, what their abilities are, and how much they differ in strength. Are they limited to only Japan, or are special grade cursed spirits registered on a worldwide scale? Like the Ganesha curse that Kenjaku used against the USA military. Since it was imported from overseas, does that mean that it wasn't registered as one of the 16 special grades or not? And if they've been registered for so long, why haven't they sent Gojo out to get rid of them? Or is it a type of situation where since their negative emotions that they're based on is so strong that they just reform again over time, and that by keeping them alive but in check, it allows them to not reform stronger than before? When Suguru Geto fought Yuta Okotsu, he mentioned that there were 16 registered special grade cursed spirits. Since the time of that statement, we still haven't even seen all of them. We only know a few of the 16 registered special grade curses. Firstly, in chronological appearance, we have Rika Orimoto. Rika Orimoto was a regular 11-year-old child that upon dying from being run over by a car, had her soul trapped by Yuta and was transformed into the vengeful cursed spirit. Rika was so powerful that she was dubbed the Queen of Curses, which is most likely an in-universe reference to Ryomen Sukuna being the King of Curses. Due to her soul being trapped within the curse, Rika is able to retain a lot of her true personality, but sort of lacks in the intelligence department. Rika can make use of abilities like cursed energy control and outputting raw cursed energy. She can also store cursed tools and cursed techniques inside of her body. She can pass through walls and other inanimate objects that aren't infused with cursed energy, and she can even access higher states of manifestation the more she becomes in sync with Yuta. It is noteworthy that, unlike her Shikigami form that we see later in the story, the actual Queen of Curses Rika does not have a time limit on her full manifestation, as she is easily able to go well beyond the 5-minute timer that Yuta has with the Shikigami Rika. Most likely, her full manifestation here is simply based on whether the duo have enough cursed energy to sustain it instead of a strictly timer-based manifestation. Secondly, we have the imaginary vengeful cursed spirit Tamamo no Mae incarnate. This was a cursed spirit that Geto managed to get under his control and used it against Yuta and Rika in the final fight of Volume 0. We can assume that it's dead, as Yuta overpowered it together with Geto's maximum Uzumaki blast in one go, and we haven't seen or heard of it since. You could also assume that if it had indeed survived the beam clash, that Geto would have used it to kill an unconscious Yuta and steal Rika, which was his whole goal. Instead of doing that, he ran away while grievously injured. Thus, it's most probable that Tamamo no Mae met its end to the hands of Yuta. During that same night parade event in Volume 0, we know that Todo took down a special grade on his own by using his curse technique. While it wasn't shown in the manga, the movie thankfully shows this fight in the extra material that was added. It wasn't outright stated if it was one of the 16, but we can assume that it was registered, because it's not often that an unregistered special grade shows, as Gojo says. Furthermore, Todo knew that it was of special grade class. Also, Geto having more than one special grade cursed spirit makes sense considering his power, rank, and also reinforces the idea that he could have beaten Yuta if he hadn't split his forces between Tokyo and Kyoto. Next up would be the smallpox deity that Kenjaku summoned to fight against Meimei and keep her occupied. While Kenjaku does say that it's a special grade cursed spirit, it yet again is unconfirmed whether or not it was one of the registered ones. If you choose to assume that it was registered, I wouldn't blame you, especially when you keep in mind that unregistered special grades don't show up that often, which is what made the disaster curses so unique. Lastly, we have the special grade cursed spirit known as Kurorushi. Finally, after a long time in the story, we got another cursed spirit that was outright confirmed to be one of the registered special grade cursed spirits. Kurorushi is based off of the negative emotions that humans harbor against cockroaches, and as such, Kurorushi has a diverse and powerful pool of moves all based on cockroaches. As was the case with the first registered special grade cursed spirit that was shown in the series, Kurorushi ironically also met its end to the hands of Yuta Okotsu. So as you can see, there is quite a large difference in power and abilities between the registered special grade cursed spirits. If we assume that the 5 that I just talked about were all registered, then it would still leave 11 registered ones that we know nothing about. While I don't think that it's going to happen, I'd love to learn more about the 16 registered special grades. Oh, and for those wondering, the disaster curses were all unregistered special grade cursed spirits. Furthermore, Ryomen Sukuna is not a part of the group of registered special grade cursed spirits, as he is categorized as a cursed object through his 20 fingers. Without the fingers, there is no Sukuna, unlike cursed spirits who can exist without a medium or vessel. The same can then be said for the 9 cursed womb death paintings Choso, Eso, Kechisu, Noranso, Shooso, Tanso, Sanso, Kotsuso, and Shoso. They too are all special grade level cursed objects. Lastly, the reincarnated players of the Culling games also had their essence turned into special grade cursed objects, which regular humans ingested, allowing them to reincarnate and suppressing their vessel's consciousness in the process. Meaning that even if they're technically special grade level, they still wouldn't be eligible to qualify for the list of the 16 registered special grade cursed spirits. Just what makes the Kamo clan so powerful that it stands on equal footing with the Gojo and Zenin clans. Throughout the story, we've gotten to know exactly why the Gojo and Zenin clans are so powerful within the Jujutsu society. While the Gojo clan may not have many powerhouses, as long as they have someone born with the limitless six eyes, they're essentially guaranteed to have one of, if not the strongest people in all of Jujutsu society in their clan. The Zenin clan also has the potential to bear one of, if not the strongest people in all of Jujutsu society within their clan through the 10 Shadows technique. Aside from that, the Zenin clan is an incredibly large family that even has its own military force and strike team. These divisions have seasoned grade 1 sorcerers with diverse and powerful curse techniques on their own. But when it comes to the Kamo clan, they really don't have all that much going for them. Their prized curse technique is the blood manipulation curse technique. While I'm confident that we still haven't seen the limits of this technique simply because their current users aren't all that great, I still think that it's pretty clear that as it stands, it doesn't look like a top tier technique that's supposed to be able to keep up with the limitless 6 eyes and 10 shadows technique. But again, that could just be because there currently isn't a special grade wielding the technique. Choso and his brothers being offspring of Noritoshi Kamo means that any and all of their blood related techniques are all things that should be possible to obtain if you're from the Kamo clan. Furthermore, during the Culling Games arc, we got a little bit more insight into the Kamo clan. Apparently, one of their elders has a longevity technique since he lived from the time of the previous Noritoshi Kamo to the time of the current Noritoshi. Lastly, we know that the Kamo clan does have a lot of political influence by the conservative factions of the higher ups. But in a society where everything is based on power and might, I'd still like to know what allows them to keep that political power up. It would be a shame if the series ends without us getting more info on their clan like we have with the Gojo and Zenin clans. So there was one more that I wanted to talk about, but midway through I realized that the topic is so big that it could serve as an entire video on its own. That is why I've decided to make one of my next videos on the mystery behind binding vows, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end, guys. If you like this video, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and if you have any things that you want to mention regarding things that you think should be explained before the series ends, then please be sure to let me know in the comments down below. See ya!